Hey everybody, this is Keith from Wargame HQ, and today we're going to be looking at Normandy 44. This is a 2010 release from GMT Games, Mark Simonich. You've probably seen it already. You've probably already played it. It's a great game. If you haven't played it, make sure that you get on the P500 that's going on right now as of July 2021. A GMT website that'll get you a third printing, which is the second edition of the game. So this is a popular game that has been in heavy play and circulation for quite some time. Of course, it's part of the Mark Simonich series of games, which goes back to all of the kind of 4X, right? So there's, Holland 44, the most recent one, Stalingrad 42, lots of great concepts in there. It's a fantastic rule book. I have an article on the site talking just about what I liked about the rule book and revisiting it. We're going to be playing with the 2.1 edition of the rules. So I think there's a newer version that has some minor changes in it that's like a living rule book, but this is the one that I grabbed and ran through. And so over the course of the next, a few weeks maybe, we're going to be going through and taking a look at the game as we play through it. I'm not going to do a full playthrough and film every last boring moment of the game. In fact, what we're going to do is just try to spotlight some of the interesting scenarios and interesting things that come up within the game. And that's going to start off with our first video, which is a part of this, talking about the invasion term, because of course you can't have a great Normandy game without talking about how it differs from other Normandy games in terms of the invasion term. So I want to show you that and make sure that you have a chance to see it. Now, as with any one of my videos, I make no guarantees that I am an expert on the game. I will make mistakes. Please call them out in the comments. I want you to do that because then other folks can benefit from you seeing what I've done wrong, and I'll benefit from it as well. And that's always a good thing for the community when we can call each other out and be constructive about it. The other thing I want you to know is I'm not always going to make great decisions in the game. And so if you've seen that be a common blunder, I'd love for you to say, hey, Keith, whoa, that was dumb. Make another choice, and we can go ahead and do that. And I know that I'm excited to dig in. I think the last time I played this game was maybe 2013 or 14. I got the game used, and so you're going to see in the course of the game that some of the counters look more like stop signs than actual Wargame counters. But hey, you know what? It's the content of the game that matters, not the corners that are clipped. And I'm looking forward to working through this game with you. So thanks, everybody. Excited to get kicking this off, and we'll have some good times across the fields of Normandy. All right. So the first thing with the invasion turn is that you have to handle the landings for both allied nations, well, really three, Canada. But in terms of the game, it is the United States and the Commonwealth. So Canadians, please forgive me if I refer to Commonwealth countries rather than calling out specifically the contributions of Canadian units. So the first thing that we're going to handle in this video is actually the Allied airborne landings. And so the landing hexes are actually called out in the game. So you'll see they have a little unit designation and a little parachute icon on here. And so we're going to take care of those. And the way that that's handled kind of ingeniously here is you roll one die for each unit. And so let's go ahead and deal with the 507th Regiment, the 82nd Airborne. Let's roll there first. So they get a 3. And if we look on the 82nd Airborne scatter table, that is a scattered with a 1 step loss. And so they get flipped over, the 1 step loss side, and they get a scattered icon. And scattered has a whole bunch of little rules that go along with that. And so ultimately, the way that scatter rule looks, they can't move or attack, they can't receive replacements, they can't build improved positions, and they can't form a zone of control bond or help facilitate one. However, they retain having a zone of control. So not the end of the world, actually not too bad of a result. The results on that table go anywhere from a 2-step loss scatter to just being scattered and even no effect at all if you roll a 6. So you want to roll high on this. So let's go ahead and roll. We've got a 4 for the 508th 82nd, and so let's take a look at that. That also is a scatter 1 result. And let's finish out the All-American Airborne unit with a 2. Not great. So a 2 is actually a scatter 2. So they take their first step loss, that puts them on the back. Their second step loss, they actually come off the board and they become a cadre. And so with a cadre unit, we're going to go ahead and slip them into the A, and they are now a cadre with a scattered. So they took some damage coming in. They do, of course, have this east front unit next to them, and east front units have some additional kind of rules that go along with them. And so we'll talk about that maybe as we get into the Germans' first turn, where they have some restrictions. All right, let's look at the 101st Airborne. So 101st Airborne, the 501st. Let's take a look at them, and let's roll. They got a 3. And so the 3 for the 101st is a scatter 1, and we've seen that before. So we know what to do there. So we take the single step loss and add a scatter token. Let's do the 506th. They got a 5, which for them is no result, so they had a clean landing. And let's take a look at the 502nd. And they got a 2, which for the 101st is a scatter 1. So we'll go ahead and flip that and throw a scattered marker on them. Okay. All right. So that closes out the Americans here. However, we have some British Red Devils. So let's go ahead and take a look at them. And let's go ahead and deal with the first unit here. So we've got, oops, we just knocked these all over, didn't we? Well, they're definitely scattered. Let's take a look. Yeah, so this is where they were. Here we go. All right. So we now have 1, which is a scatter 1. So again, pretty common result that we're seeing here. Let's roll for the next unit, a 4, which is a clean landing. And let's take a look at our last unit. They got a 5, that is also a clean landing. So the Brits in pretty good shape after their initial landings, and the Americans are scattered and damaged with the exception of the 506th 101st. Just a bit of bookkeeping with regards to scatter results for airborne landings. Each scatter result increases the replacement points for that nationality's airborne replacement point counter. So there are a series of counters that are in the game that are specifically related to, that doesn't want to zoom in, does it? Let's see here. Really doesn't want to zoom in. In any case, there are a series of replacement counters that record replacement points, and we'll take a look at that track a little more once it becomes more prescient for our discussion. But regardless, let's take a look at landing. So the 2nd Ranger Battalion is also a little bit of an edge case for the landing, because though the 2nd Ranger Battalion will land, I think the 5th ends up being dependent on what happens with the 2nd. And there's a couple of different possibilities there. And so let's go ahead and take care of that. So again, we roll 1 die. There is an invasion CRT here, and we're going to be rolling on that to handle the invasion. So let's go ahead and give it a roll. They got a 2, not great. So it's an exchange and advance 1. In this case, we're going to go ahead and take a step loss here. This is eliminated because the stronghold units essentially only have one step. So this advances. Okay. The way that the advance works is that it is essentially handled that they get to the beach. That's always the first advance hex. Any advance beyond that would only go one additional hex, and of course it's still subject to other limitations. So now we need to figure out what's going on with the 5th Ranger Battalion, and they have to roll. So immediately after the 2nd Battalion lands, we're going to roll a die of 1 to 3. We actually place that 5th Battalion at Point du Hoc, and any other result is diverted to Omaha in the follow-up box. And so that kind of historically is what happened. They didn't get the reinforcement signal, and I guess they ended up landing at Omaha. So let's take a look. So they got a 1. So they go ahead and they do land as expected. So let's go ahead and put them on Point du Hoc. So we had a successful taking of this. Of course, if you've ever been to Point du Hoc, the amount of naval bombardment and bombing has left that area, that small peninsula and jut of land, absolutely cratered even today. It's kind of amazing to see just the devastation on that small piece of land, and yet the assault was not an easy or sure thing. So good result there. So that concludes kind of the second sort of weirdo part of getting ashore for the Americans. And next we'll be taking a look at the beach landings. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the Commonwealth Beaches, and we're going to do these in order from Gold to Juno to Sword. So let's go ahead and roll for Gold Beach. Okay, we got a 5 there, and so on the All Others table, that's essentially an A1 D1. So they come out. They take a step loss. As a result, they can advance 1 into the beach, and they can go 1 beyond the beach. So I'm actually going to take this and go 1 beyond the beach. And now let's roll for our tanks. So they get a 3, so they take a step loss, and they are going to go also 1 beyond the beach. All right, let's take a look at King, and we get a 4. Same result, except it's an advance 1 instead of advance 2, which means they're only able to go onto the beach. So they go on, step loss, take that, and let's roll for the tank. And they get a 6, so they are good to go. All right, now we'll look at Juno. They got a 2, so that's rolled a 2, so that's an exchange. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So let's get rid of this, and we're going to go there. They come on. Let's roll for our tank. They take a step loss. Now we're going to do Juno Man. They get a 3. So again, it's just advance 1 with a step loss. So off they go. They come on and 1, which is step loss. Okay. Finally, we're going to deal with the 3rd Infantry Division at Sword. Let's go on and go ahead and do that. 5, which of course is our advance 2 result, so we still lose a step. However, we can bring them on, and then we can move into another hex. So because of the advance, we are able to get into this hex, even though that, well, I guess they don't have a ZOC bond because there's no zone of control, but we're still going to hop in there. And let's take a look at our tanks, which is a 1, of course, so we're just going to bump them in here as well. All right. And that is the end of the invasion, special invasion phase. So what I like about that is we've covered all of these 3 beaches without a whole lot of headache. The rules are pretty consistent, which is great, and we're now done with the beach invasion sequence.